Bittensor has had quite the run recently, and by the time this video gets out I don't know what price TAO will be at. But I want to discuss the project, really break it down, and get into what's happened this past half a year to hopefully prepare for what it is we can be getting into over the next 6 months. If you own TAO, plan to do so, or just want to learn in general, I highly recommend you stick around, as by the end you'll know what this exciting network is really about. For more videos like this, make sure you're subscribed and sign up to our exchange partners JumpX and CoinW with links in description. JumpX is a brand new non-KYC exchange offering 0% trading fees on all spot pairs, a fee discount on all futures trades with an additional fee rebate on each of those trades, and the highest deposit bonuses in the entire space. CoinW is also non-KYC, offering 0% maker fees on all trades and a literal free $50 for just signing up, and then another $50 for making one trade. TAO last year ran 1500% from 50 to 750 within the span of 4 months starting late October 2023. Binance listed TAO soon after, and on their exchange it wicked to 1250, since then having a lot of people say fill the wick. In June the harsh bleeding stopped and the coin ranged for over 100 days. This, like it often does, had a lot of people capitulate and give up on the project. But like I said just last video, having this range form as a base before a potential large wave upward is something that'll end up being net positive. So now TAO has broken out of the range with impulse, and like I tweeted, it's still completely dependent on Bitcoin. But if all systems are go on the macro side of things, TAO could be setting up for something pretty special relatively soon. I'm not a trader or much of a TA guy, but some are still calling this next move the 3 before the 4. I don't want to get too ahead of myself because that'd also mean there's still a 5 to come, but I'd be interested to see what you guys think about that. There's also all these fractals going around of how successful altcoins have moved in the past. This one I'm a lot more passionate about, but not because of the specific price levels, but more so how TAO, in my opinion, has for a long time been shaping up like these Solana ETH Cardano type charts. What that results in at the end I don't know, but the point is, if this next wave is even somewhat synonymous to what we've had with past iterations, I don't really think I need to say much more. I got into the project last year, and more than Bittensor, my loyalties in a way were with the idea of decentralized AI models. The incentive component is what got me quite excited about TAO, however. Open source protocol is a necessity, the safety and democratic and ethics behind it are self-explanatory, but the incentivization with TAO is the game changer. Let's say a certain subnet on TAO focuses on stable diffusion image generation. Let's say you submit a prompt of a cat on Mars. Miners on the subnet respond with their own iteration of such. Don't think of these as Bitcoin miners, it's different. Instead, they output AI models to different inputs, and then validators of each subnet will rank these miners' response from best to worst on a consensus, with the highest ranking miner being the output that's shown to the original question and receiving the highest amount of TAO as a reward. In this example, let's say there's 5 miners and miner 1 keeps winning each and every time, getting the greatest TAO reward. Since it's open source, the other miners can see what they're doing and adjust their own algorithms and programs accordingly. So what miner 1 did was raise the ceiling and the other miners try to match. This is where the incentive part of it is so great, because innovation is still rewarded. So these miners keep working, trying to improve as much as possible, and let's say it's miner 3 this time that does something to keep winning the TAO reward each time. Other miners see what's up, and it's this parabola of innovation and network effects because it's all incentivized. And because anyone from anywhere can contribute, how can closed source models of a certain company with a certain amount of employees bound to something like a salary ever keep up with this phenomenal game theory? But there has been issues along the way. Weight copying is a big one, where some validators do no work themselves and copy others. So let's say you and I are both validators. You have all this infrastructure in place to rank miners from best to worst, and I have nothing. All I do is copy your rankings. The reason is because validators get a decent chunk of the TAO reward. So I could just raise the TAO, become a validator, get huge rewards, and dump all of it, contributing nothing to the network along the way. Subnet owners also get a slice of the TAO reward. So we've had instances where subnets make a bunch of promises, do nothing, and again grab and dump TAO. You've probably heard of dynamic TAO by now. That is a way to fix a lot of these issues. I'll make a dedicated dynamic TAO video, but if sufficient contribution isn't given to the network, you'll get kicked off. For example, each subnet gets its own token pooled against native TAO. If your token slips too low versus TAO, it's a wrap for your subnet. But if you provide good innovation, you can gain value versus native TAO and become incredibly successful. Now, in terms of TAO price action, we've had the classic rise where speculation and hype is enough to put it on the map, the introductory sort of run. Then the leg down comes where early buyers make huge profits, plus the hate of people who don't get in is enough to drive it down. The FUD begins to palpate and realize itself. Then comes the building part, the fixing of things, which Bittensor has most certainly been doing as of late. Again, dynamic TAO is on the way. The introduction of distributed training on Bittensor, EVM functionality, and smart contracts soon to be introduced on the network. Also, what's happened is over this chop, it's allowed a good amount of the TAO supply to be issued. Remember, there's 21 million TAO that'll ever exist, just like Bitcoin. It too is emitted based on a halving schedule, with the first one being next summer 2025. Which means that until then, since we're in its early stages, more TAO will be emitted now than ever. We're in the steepest part of the unlocks, meaning if the markets can just absorb the brunt of the dilution pressure for a while, it'll be in a much more healthy spot once that starts to plateau. I feel like that's exactly what happened. A lot of TAO was minted, but as Bad English T points out, the demand side is quite strong. Mining is insanely competitive, and the amount of TAO needed for subnets is making it seem like we may be undergoing a supply crunch. Since the projects popped onto the scene, we've also have considerable figures talk about it. Recall Chmoss saying Bittensor is an interesting play in completing models based on a bounty system. Barry getting to a point where he's relentlessly shilling TAO harder than anyone I've seen. And Elon Musk of all people liking a tweet alluding to TAO, with some people thinking this tweet of the TAO Greek letter a year ago was in fact reference to Bittensor. There's also some hardcore Bitcoin maxis like Fred Krueger saying it's an interesting project. I think one of the few times, if ever, he's talked positively about an altcoin. There's also word that TAO was given extremely high praise at Token 2049. I also know Vitalik spoke about it on stage, citing it as an actually open, actually public model. And if we move over to charts, we can see that TAO has reclaimed that all-important 50% drawdown level since its top. The local bottom versus Bitcoin seems like it's in. It's also forming its largest ever weekly candle in terms of dollars and one of its highest in percentage points, setting up for strong continuation depending on how Bitcoin acts. If we reference the indicators, RSI got down to levels we saw at $40 before the run up to $750. Stock RSI got to the lowest levels it's ever been. Weekly MACD is turning up for the first time since this entire downturn. The 9MA is also on the verge of crossing the 21 moving average. First time we're seeing that again since the low before 700. So all in all, it's not looking too bad going forward. Also remember that Bittensor for a long time was capped at 32 subnets, but with some criticism the limit has been raised to 64. The more subnets, the more competition, the more spread out validators and miners get, meaning greater decentralization, and obviously the innovation. When the artificial intelligence narrative started getting hot after the launch of ChatGPT, there were a lot of cool projects that began to carve out their identity in the niche. It began to be touted as the biggest narrative of this cycle. My question, however, was traditionally the projects to get to the highest of valuations were always the base layer type, mostly smart contract plays or currencies, who had the ability to carry on all that money. We don't really see dApps get to tens of billions. And so with AI, as much as I liked a lot of these GPU and computing type crypto, my concern was, would they be able to receive all that liquidity? A thing that got me interested in Bittensor was that if the vision did pan out, it would have the width and depth to receive those high valuations, akin to what L1s did last cycle. So if that is the case, the recipe for most successful crypto each cycle are they're new in that cycle, they're a part of the biggest narrative, and they don't just have a community but a group of doubters as well. That disagreement, I feel, is important. There can't be consensus, as that makes it too obvious. And so I don't know what price TAO gets to by the end of this cycle, but if everything around it is the way it should be, then why can't it pull one of those memorable runs? A 5-digit TAO would require a market cap of 75 billion, and that's no small change by any means. But last cycle we had 5 projects aside from Bitcoin and ETH hit that marker. Could TAO be one of them this time around? No, I'm not at all saying this is a guarantee, but this is what investing is. It's not that anyone actually knows. Just learning about this space for years, then applying simple logic, and honestly going through this entire curve just to come back to this spot again. But there's my mini update on Bittensor. To summarize, there really is no update. The idea and thesis on the network is the exact same as it's always been. But obviously when it's time to de-risk, I will let you all all knows, so make sure you're subbed for that. Sign up to those exchanges below for all your trading needs and to support the channel. And I should see you all fairly soon.